Okay, this is real important. Stay with me. So B's the first one in Mar-a-Lago. They go to Mar-a-Lago when he got elected. Now, we know through my act that Putin popped off a nuclear bomb on the inauguration day. We know that now. That's our group started detecting nuclear fallout across Norway and Sweden. He's restarted up testing. So is Trump. Doing it right here at Idaho National Lab, which is Weber State University. That's where everything goes. The ties here, the hooks there to the nuclear industry are all Wattis construction, floor, floor, floor. You know, they all tie together. So, again, it ties into Chernobyl, it ties into Fukushima, the cover-up, why everybody goes along with this, the imperialist game that they play, the power that is wielded through the nuclear industry. Now you think about it, you got a nuclear reactor somewhere, just like Chernobyl. Now you think about this. You ain't got to drop a nuclear bomb, do you? Let's have an accident at Chernobyl. And if you don't think it worked, you don't think whether it was an accident, it happened. Now you think about the devastation. Okay, now we have Fukushima, which is 3 of them, been covered up into the Pacific Ocean. And everybody tells me it's a coincidence?
Exactly. That's a devastation in the ocean.
Yeah. Which, hey, breaking news, the jet stream moves left to right. You know, I was on this university, you know, I come up here, you know, when it happened, we had a radnet dish at the science building. The feds were up there pulling it down. The next day after Fukushima, I videoed it. I asked them, what the hell are you doing? Now, if anybody doesn't know what radnet is, radnet's the radiation detectors that goes around the country government for these very reasons. Accidents, you know, nuclear reactor accident, nuclear bomb, dirty bomb, all this stuff. We have an incredible network, but none of it works. So a woman named Gina McCarthy was head of radnet at the time for the Obama administration. She took it down. Then Obama was so happy and pleased with his good puppet that he made her head of the EPA.
Oh, wow.
And so inside the Situation Room, it was all cover-up. You know, inside the Situation Room, and I have the transcript, and I get a lot of trouble. I got to be careful, but now John Holden's talked about it because it was leaked to me. Do you know the CEO of Floor Construction, the CEO of Chicago Bridge and Iron, and the CEO of General Electric were all inside there for the first, you know, deciding on this cover-up? And on March 17th, 2011, Obama gives his famous lecture in the Rose Garden. The plume is coming over us right now. He called it the plume. But we don't think the radiation levels are that high to be alarmed in California yet. And we're going to make sure we keep you posted. Do you know they were all flown to South America that day? Including the CEO of Floor Construction, all of them to orchestrate this cover-up. And they pulled it off. So now, here we got, you know, we had hope when Obama's out. And I voted for Obama. He betrayed me because I was a peace activist. You know, and I liked him. He talked a good game, didn't he? He talked a real good game. Great speech giver. But I wish I'd have done more work on him. And I'm not one of these guys, I'm just going to vote for somebody because I was a peace activist. I worked with Code Pink. But he had voted against both wars, right? That's what beat Hillary. What beat Hillary in 2008? She voted for both wars. And remember how bad we all hated freaking Bush and Cheney and the war machine? Think about the anti-war protests that were going on in this country at the time.
I remember.
Oh, it was
and also a collapse in the financial.
Yeah, that's right. It happened right at the end of the 2008. Happened at the end of the Bush cycle. It'll happen again. TikTok, you know. But that ties into the youth. Why are you not protesting housing? Why are you? And that's the byproduct of the 0%. That was their answer for 20 years. Every time we got a little bit of trouble, just go further in debt and lower the interest rate. Keep it at 0, which is, I mean, I'm an old economics professor. We call that inflate your way out. We know this is what it causes, and it causes a housing crisis. I was in Rome. And was that 2 years ago when I was there? I was in Rome, and just out of nowhere, they decided to organize a housing protest on affordable housing. So I went. They organized for 6 days. You know how many people were in the streets of Rome? 2 million. That's all. That's all. The government's afraid. Here,
That's a lot of people.
I cannot believe, and I understand because the young people in our country have been repressed. They're afraid. They're afraid of the police. And because we live in a very repressive society. But, you know, you could organize, do something on the campuses, and I know the cops, they'd probably participate with you, you know, and so the housing crisis is very real, and it's all, you know, the science fiction economics, as I call it, you know, so what's more repressive than cancer? You know, keep people in line, you know, so was the reactor at Chernobyl an accident, or, you know, you got to realize, like our generation, we know the Cold War like no other. We lived it. And so you think these are far-fetched, you're crazy. Look what they did in the Cold War, which is basically to, you know, the United States was supposed to be the shining beacon light post the war. It's like right now, it's like this whole socialism debate we have. Let's make America great again. Let's make you... So I always say, well, let's make them great again like they were when they were socialist. The United States from 1945 to 1979 were the most socialized people in the history of humanity post-war. You know what the tax rate was on the 1% in this country?
You told me 90%.
96.
96%.
The working class had all. We were socialist. 100% socialist. By any stretch of the imagination. More strongest middle class in world history. The average athlete in this country made less than 3 times the average working class person. Working class, and because that was all post, you know, the rejection of capitalism, Hoover. You know, that nightmare we had from 1929 to 1945, and if any of you have never read much about it, go see the movie Cinderella Man. You know, there's a contemporary movie that's very accurate on the Depression. The starvation, the unemployment, the hell, well, these people lived it. They weren't no me, I anymore, they were we. And so, of course, the unions got corrupt and got... So when they have this conversation about so-called, oh, the Mormon Church is the worst violator of it. They'll say, oh, they go into this rant about, oh, the Feld socialism. Feld? What are you talking about, Feld? You think 1945 to 1979 in the United States was a failure? You're talking one of the most powerful societies, happiest societies in the history of humankind.
Because everybody was taken care of.
The middle class had all the money. They had lots of free time. Think about the art. Think about the music. Think about the music that was made then, because they had time. It was an incredible... No debt, by the way. No debt. Zero debt.
Zero debt.
Zero debt. You know, you damn socialists, what's the matter? And the Mormon Church, let's get real about the Mormon Church. The Mormon Church were even more than socialists. They
Communists.
Yeah, they were communists. They were communists. 100% redistribution of wealth among their... And by the way, they were flag burners. Now we got Brent Taylor's family and their prophet state, you know, it's sad that Brent died, but these big flags, right? By the way, I want to say this.
Why they were doing that?
I don't get that.
Burning? Because they didn't feel American?
No, right. So the Mormons rejected the United States government in a big way. Total rejection. When the Mormons came out here was to get away. I mean, come on. Joseph Smith's idea was to start his own country. Okay, which they did it. They came out here, they called it Deseret.
Deseret, yeah.
They had their own currency, they had their own money, they had their own... By the way, if you were a Mormon, you only shopped at Mormon merchants, what's called ZCMI, you know, and so...
That is true. I have seen the bills printed by that time.
Yes, and it was still going on when I was a kid. And so they hated the federal government with a deep-rooted passion. They had their own money. They had their own currency. Let's get real. At the Beehive House, go down to Salt Lake City, where Brigham Young lived, the cannons pointed up to Fort Williams, and Fort Williams pointed down to there for 50 years.
Wow.
They had a standoff. The United States military was afraid of the Mormons. And they called it Deseret, which was the whole western United States, which, by the way, they were very hardcore Bible thumpers, because they did not worship the golden calf. To possess gold was against their religion. Of course, they got their gold, you know, up there on their temples, Angel Mariah, but, you know, maybe that was Brigham Young to keep it himself. And my great-great-grandpa was Abraham Hunsaker the First. That's the guy that found the soul of the Sutter's Mill. And so, all the western United States was called Deseret. They hated the feds. They hated Big Brother. They hated the government, because they were the government. They were their own country. And so, now we've turned completely opposite, where, I mean, these guys will stand up, Pledge of Allegiance, you know, by that whole Pledge of Allegiance stuff is post-war bullshit. That's all propaganda. That's Nazi stuff. We didn't do no Pledge of Allegiance before these wars. I mean, the whole flag thing, I mean, Google the truth about Betsy Ross. Come on. The whole flag waving, it's over the top, and the whole militarism. I don't understand how people went for this. So this is important that I say this today. So there's a young guy on 22nd Street, excuse me, on 26th Street, who I know. And it hasn't been in the paper yet, but you'll see it in the paper. He was killed in Afghanistan recently.
27 years old.
No, he lived on 27. I think he was younger than that. He's a young guy. He was killed. This is recent. And so I told everybody, I says, well, I don't see... Now, the University of Utah gave Brent Taylor a doctorate degree. Big flat. Why did we have these big parades for Brent? You know, it's sad that he died, but how many... Do we see parades for these? Why him? Why are they waving Brent's flag like a body, like a flag like that? I don't get this. Why are they using him? And his family's going along with it, which, you know, I get it, they're wounded. And this is important too, that's why I got the hat. Scots. Now, this is important here at Weber State. Why are they called the Scots? Why is that peak called Ben Lomond High? Why is everything the Ben Lomond Hotel? Freaking everything. Now, who's a guy named Mariner Eccles? Do you guys know who Mariner Eccles is? The Federal Reserve in Washington, D.C. is named the Mariner Eccles. He's the greatest economist in the history of this country. Oh, he's an Ogden. He's a Weber State guy. He's a Utah State guy. Look. So everybody think he called himself, he ran the Fed from 1945 to 1980. Autograph book, go up to the library. You know what he called himself? Burgos, which is the French word for middle. For I am the great socialist. My father, David Eccles, so that's where they came from. They came from Scotland, in the slums of Glasgow. Now, I've always said that MI6 sponsored David Eccles and, you know, the Brownings. So the two greatest... Oh, before I forget, you guys, everybody should show up that's watching my crowd that's around. We got a big day coming Friday and Saturday in this town, right? The big day. It's the 150th anniversary of the Golden Spike. Speaking of the Eccles.
That's true, yeah.
Oh, it's a major... I mean, I was 8 years old when it turned 100. So the guy standing on the back of the trains, my great-great-grandpa, the first SP office was in Honeyville, which was his house. That's the guy that found the Golden Suitors, blah, 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 blah. But my grandpa did not believe in inherited wealth. They were old-school socialists, like the Mormons were. And my grandpa was a staunch Mormon. And my grandmother. They required us to learn a trade by we were 16. They left all their money, well, to the University of Utah and to the church, of course. You know, so that's why it's all called the Scots. They came from the slums of Glasgow, Scotland. And so everything around here, this is the power that he wielded. John Maynard Keynes. Keynes in economics, right? You know what John Maynard Keynes said about Mariner Eccles? Why do we call it Keynes in economics? I'm not the one that invented it. Mariner used it in practice. Mariner was the FDR, the New Deal. Tugwell, who gets credit for being the New Deal economist, the Columbia, you know, he says in his own book, what do I get the credit for? It was Mariner and George Eccles. George Eccles is an Ogden, Utah guy. You know, so that's why everything's named the Scots. So, and by the way, the BL, Ben Lomond, you know, Scott. The Highland Hikers, right, for you Highland guys. The BL's for Blanche. I changed it. I'm going to go up there on the hill, see if they get me. That sounds like so. There's some good history for you when they start throwing this. How can the Mormon Church, right here in the Union, I was at the conference. I used to be on the committee. And the Mormon, by the way, if you don't think I got credentials, I want you to, the English department's going to be renamed at BYU, the way it looks, to the May Blanch English department.
Are you related?
Yeah, it's my auntie, who was friends with Macomb McCray Brody. And so, and
she was friends with Fawn?
Yes, I knew Fawn really personally.
Wow.
Fawn's an Ogden girl. She was a professor at Weber State. Shh, don't tell anybody. She was a 16, 17-year-old professor at Weber State University. The greatest female historian in the history of the United States.
And a dean.
The dean of history at UCLA. First female dean in the history of the country. Shh, don't say that around Weber State University. Because she wrote No Man Knows My History.
Right.
Todd said that, you know what she said about, the one line she said about Joseph Smith? She was the great historian. She was a professor at this university at 16 years old. She went to Weber High. Didn't you go to Weber High? Yeah. Me too. We don't talk about her, do we? Like Damien's everybody said, well, Damien Lillard's probably our most famous alumni now. And I says, no, he's still second. And he says, what do you mean? I says, no, we still have Fawn McCay Brody. He'll always be second. He ain't passing her. I don't care what he does unless he, unless he can clean up Fukushima single-handedly, then I'll put him up over. By the way, I want to talk about this real quick about Damien before I forget. There's a lot of professors and a lot of students when Damien was going here. I met him right here. I remember when I shook his hand, Randy Ray introduced me. He says, "This is one of our new recruits," and I'm like, and I got big hands for my size. I'm not that big of a guy, but this guy's, I'm like, my God, I've never seen hands on a dude like this. Oh, and then the first time I saw him play, but it was all Jimmer. But there's a lot of professors around here and students that went to school with him said he was so arrogant, and I said, "You sure that was arrogance?" There's a friend of mine who teaches communications here and says, he's bolded, said, Damien stood up right in class. He says, "What are you talking about?" He says, "I'm going to be a superstar in the NBA, period." And people were in the class, because they'd let him go, "Well, what if you don't?" No, there's no not what if I don't. I'm going to be a superstar in the NBA. And this is when he's playing at Weber State. Nobody even knew who he was, And is that arrogance? Well, it looks like it's confidence to me. It's a fine line, huh? But boy, he's proved us, he didn't prove me wrong. I always believed in him. And I know him, he's a genius, by the way. He's got a mind like a freaking trap. He's incredible, and so he does a lot for the community. And again, back to Weber State athletics around the country. We're not Alabama. We're not, University of Connecticut. We're not, UCLA. Yet we have more students. We're not that. We used to be this great academia school. I mean, we had the #1 school of finance in the country for years. I taught there. Now it's a joke. It's all Chinese art. We have this fantastic nursing school, one of the finest in the world. We still have. So why are we bound to the NCAA? Sports merchandising? Oh, by the way, I've got the very last Damian Lillard jersey, the book score. I had them hold it for me. They says, "We're not ordering any more." I told Damien, I says, "Boy, they didn't do anything when you were here. They sure used you, they sure sold it." They were selling 120 jerseys a day when he got Rookie of the Year. And so we want to focus more at this university. It's going to be controversial. Cole's going to be the new guy around here, and he and I, we did the football game. And I'm not a fan of Jay Hills up there. I'm really not a fan of his. I really don't like the guy that well. And I don't even like Randy Ray that well either. I really think their media, I think they're full of themselves. But I will say this about Jay. I think he's arrogant. I think he overlooked freaking thing. I think he's so full of himself, but I guess they throw all this money at him. But he does recruit local players. And we love the local players. We pay our taxes. Our parents pay our taxes. Our grandparents pay our taxes. And that's who pays. This is a state university. We're not Harvard. We're not Stanford. Let's act like it. Let's act like a community school, which we are. We're not a sell sports merchandising. So bleep I won't say it. I think it's legal now that we don't have, because we're not over the airways anymore, digital. I think it's legal for me to say the NCAA, which I'll find out for sure before I do it. I'll let one of these young guys do it first. They get a lot more political cover than me. So we're going to take it back. And, we're going to start doing play-by, because the play-by-play through the NCAA and through KL sucks anyway. It ain't going to take, the bar's not very high, and we want to promote the student athlete. We want to promote the students, period, whether they be a basketball player or a writer or a guy who, a painter or, a philosopher or a mechanic, or how about a nurse, I think of when I was in the LDS East State bone marrow transplant, Fimbo Peters from Denmark says, "Oh, I hire Weber State nurses." He says, and a lot of them were men, It's a very honorable position. And, so why don't we promote those people? They're the celebrities. We shouldn't be, worshiping, throwing money to the NCAA. Let's promote our student body, because our graduation rate has plummeted. And I wonder why. Because they're taking advantage, because the young person, and the NCAA gives them a year-by-year contract. They get hurt, they throw them to the wolves. Bye, see ya. We made a bunch of money. It's outrageous. So we want to promote the student athlete, and we're going to be controversial doing it. And by the way, this radio station, I want people to say, if you're a young student, pop in. Come in. talk to Manny, talk to Cole. Cole's going to be the new guy here.
Take a class. Take a class.
There you go. Hey, you had a big student body today in the summer semester. Well, how big was your class today?
I've been okay. We're going to have five people enrolled.
So nice. So see, look at, and by the way, you learn a lot from this dude, I'll tell you. And if you don't believe in his IT skills, look at our website. KWCR, look at it. That's
KWCR.live.
That's his baby.
That's my baby.
That's his baby.
Yeah.
Manuals. And so you could learn a lot from this guy, and he's got an engineering background, you know, environmental engineering. And one thing too, you know, because you're Mexican, you know, so how many nuclear reactors they got in Mexico?
Just one.
Right.
Just one plant in my hometown, by the way.
Yeah.
Laguna Verde.
And from what I understand, it's going to get shut down ASAP. So the Fukushima.
They want to shut it down. They want to make it a museum.
Yeah, but
do what we should never do in Mexico anymore, because we don't need nuclear in Mexico.
We don't need it anywhere.
Tons of rivers.
We don't need it anywhere. It's called the sun. It comes up every morning.
Oh, and we have a lot of wind, by the way. So.
By the way, everybody, Denmark, for instance, how long's that part of the world been using wind in the Netherlands? And, you know, remember Hitler blew up the dikes? Anyway, they use wind, which, and of course, solar's gotten so much better. But in the desert of Utah, in the western United States, California's producing 175% more energy, solar energy a day than they can use. Because we block it from coming into the grid. Because the political whores we have here, for sale, including Ann and all of them, they just take the dime from the lobbyists. You got me lobbying down there against teams of attorneys. For sale, they block it. They block the grid.
High corruption.
Oh, it's ridiculous. And that's the thing with Weber State. We got to start somewhere. If we're going to break the back of this corrupt place, this debtor's hell that we've created, this obey, consume paradigm. By the way, so you know, you young people, we're consuming 44% of the world's product in this country right now. Guess how much of the world's population we make up? Less than 4%.
That's right.
Has it always been that way? Oh, hell no. 1980, it was 12%. People were freaking out about that 1980. Through the great socialist era, 1945, by the way, we made all our own stuff. Why do you think everybody drove those beautiful GMs? And look at the cars of the 70s. Look at the music of the 70s, the 60s, the 50s. Look at the art. Pollock, Warhol, you know, because people had free time. Look what people look like. And you think of our food chain. Organic, because we were organic. So, not now. I mean, so, oh, it's always going to be this way. We're going to be neo-feudals. You know, it's like in Austria, they tell me, Kevin, it took us 1,200 years to wake up. It's against the law to work more than 35 hours a week in most of those areas over there now. The middle class has all the power. You know, they don't believe in wealth. It reminds me of growing up in Ogden, Utah in the 60s and 70s. Like the Brownie wealth, or they hid all their wealth, and they were in Belgium. They didn't make anything here. They were out of here because we didn't allow it in the U.S. Did you know that inherited wealth was pretty well, you couldn't do it in the U.S. unless you had to go foreignly and backdoor and do it illegally. They had to park their money offshores and do it illegally out of the country. You know what the inheritance tax was in that era? 90-something%. So you couldn't leave your wealth to your freaking heirs. And why were they? Because they said that's monarchy stuff. We're anti-monarchy. Again, back to FDR. So Prince Harry, so get back, you know, bow. Oh, hey, Kate had a baby, you know, and she's like Obama. And if Obama is black, I'm rainbow striped. You know, there's nothing African American about him. 0.0. He's whitey from Kansas, grew up in, you know, in Hawaii, you know, and I voted for him. You know, he lied to me. So it has nothing to do with race or anything. That's just all trickery. Has zero to do with race.
Exactly.
Bloodlines. Bloodlines. You know? And there was a time even in Africa that existed. You know, your Empress, you know, Serengeti. You know, and so, do you know about Timbuktu? You know, and you know in Mexico. I mean, that fight's been going for a long time in Mexico.
They wanted to impose in Mexico imperialism in the 1800s.
Yeah.
With Maximilian the First.
What happened to him?
He was killed in Mexico.
How many of those guys were killed? I mean, ooh. I mean, they used to have a revolution, you know.
Because the Mexicans didn't accept the imperialism.
Neither did we in the U.S. We bore it out here in the U.S. What do you think? Alexander Hamilton, George Washington. By the way, King George, which the other baby's named, had bench warrants for every one of these guys. And if you don't believe me, I want you to go to Brooklyn, New York, to go to Fort Greene. And that big tower, it's at the Fort Greene Park. There's 11,500 bodies in there. They rounded up the Battle of Brooklyn, Hamilton, which he lost. They rounded up every man, woman, and child in Brooklyn. They put them on prison ships. Said they were sending them back to King George to be tried for treason, the peasants. They let them all starve to death on the ships.
I didn't know that. And you know what? Let's go back a little bit to the imperialism in Mexico. The very beginning of that was Cinco de Mayo.
Bingo, which was yesterday.
That was yesterday. The celebration of Cinco de Mayo, many people here in the States think that it's Mexico's independence.
No.
It's not.
It's when they won the battle against the French.
Exactly. Because the French wanted to invade Mexico, and that was the very first battle that they fought. It was the people of Napoleon, the best army of Europe, by the way. And they were defeated by a bunch of Mexican mixed people.
Well, get real. Let's get real about last of the Mohicans. The United States and Mexico. Who has the only place on earth that has more natural resources than the United States, especially out here west? The gold, you know, the Rio Tinto, the Queen's Hole with your shiny gold, Bingham copper mine here, the biggest one. What place has more natural resources than us? Mexico. So the French, the English, the Germans, the Russians have been fighting over this place for centuries.
Forever.
It's called the Russian Rivers for a reason. And by the way, the flags at Old Town, San Diego, it's Mexican flag, but then it's a Mexican flag, and the capital of Mexico from 1821 to 1848 was
Monterey, California.
Bingo, the old Pacific capital.
Right.
And again, back to the
It was
Mormons.
the capital of the country, of all Mexico. Monterey, California.
Right, and so back to, you know, Deseret here. You know, it's been a war over these, in the Queen's Hole over there. Go get your shiny yellow rocks. You know, you think the U.S. has gold resources? And by the way, I want to say this because I wear my Goya shirt usually from the University of Mexico. It's the biggest story that we don't talk about when they murdered all those young college students in Mexico.
1968.
No, the one that happened just a couple years ago.
Oh, yeah, the Ayotzinapa.
Yeah, the Ayotzinapa. You know, a lot of those kids were from the University of Mexico. They were from all over. They were recruits. They were young, 16, 17, 18 environmentalists.
That's the inheritance from the last government in Mexico.
Yeah.
They were genocides.
Oh, well, they were taking anybody green and killing them.
Mass murders, yeah.
Anyway, in all of southern Mexico, they've been slaughtering them. What's her name? Busto, the famous, not Busto, the one down in Argentina. The Chinese went into her bedroom, blew her head off. What, 2 years ago? And so, you think it takes guts to be an environmentalist and stand up against the machine? Here, go down there and try it. You know, and it's the Chinese now are the new player. The Chinese, the Russians, the French, not so much the French anymore, you know, but they're all the same clan. I call it the board game, and they're all related. So it's the same old theme, 1916, but they have nuclear now, and the cat got out of the bag. So everybody watch the Chernobyl documentary. It's important, and when you watch it, remember, take that one and times it by, I will quote Ricardo Iki. Fighting leukemia is 10 times, 100 times, 1,000 times more difficult than ever. That's her last tweet. And that was on March 13th. And we haven't heard from her since, fighting for her life. That's what Fukushima is. Hello. God, I better turn this off before it goes.